Hi, it's Lauren, and I'm so excited to be hopping along today for our Pocket Full of Fun Whimsy Stamps video hop. The pocket die set that I'm using for my project is this Slimline pocket die set. It has awesome dies that help kind of create this denim jean back pocket. So I use my pocket die as well as this V-shaped die that puts in a stitching detail onto my cardstock, and I'm going to be using Bristol smooth cardstock because I'm doing some ink blending. I'm starting off here with faded jeans in the middle, which of course I'm trying to make a denim back pocket, so faded jeans seems to be the right color. And then I'm also going to use Stormy Sky as a lighter color to blend into that faded jeans. And as my darker color, I'm going to be using chipped Sapphire. I just wanted to create a different shade of denim. I didn't want it to be one color. I thought having a blend would just really make this pocket look nice, especially when I get out my spray bottle. It looks like a faded back pocket of jeans. I wanted to add some shimmer to my splatter here, so I'm going to be using some metallic watercolors I have in my stash. I'm going to be using my blue. I need to make sure my watercolor has enough water, and then I'm just using a brush just to splatter on that color and then picking up the excess. I just want that shimmer more than the color, and I thought the blue shimmer would look really nice on my blue denim back pocket. I have this small rainbow from the Array of Rainbows die set, and I cut it out of some kind of pinkishy red, yellow, and a light green cardstock, and I thought this would be a pretty rainbow detail on my blue back pocket. I was kind of going for a 70s feel for this card. I thought rainbows and then soon you'll see daisies would be really fun, just kind of giving that 70s jeans look where there's like stitching detail on our jeans. So I'm going to start putting my pocket together. I am folding over on the score lines and just using a bone folder to make sure I have really nice creases. And then I'm going to work on gluing my rainbow onto my back pocket. So I'm going to start with my smallest color and just going to use some liquid glue and apply that to the back of my rainbow piece. And then I'm going to center that as best as possible on my denim back pocket, leaving some excess to trim off once it is dry. And I'm going to repeat this process for my yellow and red rainbow band as well. Now, I had originally brought out some blue cardstock, but I'm going to change my mind later. I thought I would put it on some blue cardstock to make it look like jeans, but I just wasn't feeling it, and I ended up changing my mind in a little bit. So I'm going to set that aside to dry and work on my stamping. I have my Fadoodle daisies here, one of my favorite sets, and I am stamping that with some VersaFine ink in Onyx Black. I'm going to take it over to my heat gun and set that ink a little bit. And then I brought out my Zig watercolors. I'm using a yellow and an orange as well as my blender to blend those two colors together to make a nice yellowy orangey center for my daisies. I'm going to repeat that for all of them and leave my petals white from the cardstock. I fussy cut them all out, and I'm just going to keep them in my little container here so I can have them ready for my pocket piece. So now that my rainbow is dry, I'm just going to go ahead and trim off that excess off of the edges of my pocket. And now I want to work on my daisy portion of this card. I thought it would be fun to have a little white piece of paper, and I can, write a sentiment later inside. Maybe I'll stick some money in there or a gift card. Just wanted to create something to pull out and make this an interactive card for my card receiver. So I'm measuring my pocket and trimming down this white piece of cardstock to fit inside. And then I'm going to glue my daisies onto this piece of cardstock. So I want a couple of them to kind of stick out over the pocket. So I'm using my two largest daisies. And I'm just putting my paper in the pocket, and then I'm going to place my daisy and make sure that this is a good size. And I could still see some paper outside of the flower. I don't want the paper to be obvious. I want the flowers to be the only thing the card receiver sees. So I trimmed a little more. And I think this is now a 3.5 by 3.25 piece of cardstock. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to start putting glue onto my daisies. I'm only putting glue on the back where it will touch the white cardstock because I don't want my daisies to get stuck to the card base. So I'm going to place that on, make sure it looks good. I still don't like that I can see some cardstock there on the left, so I'm going to peel it up and scooch it over. And now I'm happy with the placement of this daisy on the left. Now for the daisy on the right, like I said, I'm going to use the other larger daisy, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to place it inside, kind of get an idea of how I'm going to glue the daisy on. Add some wet glue just to the part that will be on the white cardstock, and then attach it again. I'm putting it back in the pocket just to make sure I have it in the right spot, how I want it. And then I will stick that daisy down and press to make sure it has good adhesion to that cardstock. Now I'm going to glue the rest of my flowers, just in various spots, and just kind of putting them anywhere and everywhere onto this piece so it looks like a nice little bundle of daisies are sticking out of my pocket. I do have an extra few, so I'm going to actually pop one of these up and kind of make it a little easier to grab for the card receiver. So I'm just putting some mini little foam squares behind my daisy. I'll peel off the release paper and then stick that in kind of the center of my daisies here. I have a couple more and I'm going to play with how I want them, but I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. So I will set them aside for now. But again, I wasn't feeling that background color. So I'm going to go through my stash and pick out something different, because the more I play with the daisies, the more I'm just not inspired by this blue background. So I have a few different packs of smooth cardstock that I use mostly for layering. It's the same cardstock I use for my rainbow, and I'm going through my pack of cools and just seeing if there's something that inspires me. But it isn't until I get to this bright yellow that I'm like, ooh, yes, I really like this bright yellow. It matched the center of my daisies, and I just thought it was really bright and fun. And I went with it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that blue cardstock in my scraps. And then I wanted to add some texture and design to this yellow cardstock. So I am going to bring out one of my daisy stamps, and I thought I cleaned it really well, but apparently I didn't, because you will see a little bit of dark spots as I'm stamping with my VersaMark, but that's okay because I'm going to emboss it, and I'm using some holographic embossing powder from Ranger. So I'm just stamping around, just around the edges, because I'm not going to see anything in the middle as it will be covered by the pocket. And once I'm happy with how many daisies and petals I have on my cardstock, I'm going to apply my holographic embossing powder. Now this is clear, so even though I do have some wonky dark spots, it will be a little bit darker on the final card because it is a clear embossing powder. But honestly, with the shimmer, you can't even tell, it looks fine. So I'm going to bring my heat gun over and start heating up my embossing powder. I realized that I probably should not keep a metal plate underneath because that's going to get hot. So I move that aside and then work on melting down that embossing powder on my cardstock. And once that is all done, I'm super happy with how it looks. I love the added shimmer. I love that there's a subtle texture to my background, and I'm ready to start gluing everything together. So I'm going to use some really strong sticky tape onto my pocket. This is going to be placed onto the center of my cardstock, well, the center bottom. So you want to make sure that it's really stuck on there, so use a really good double-sided sticky tape. So now I'm going to place that onto my card base, but I want to make sure I have plenty of room. So I am putting my daisies into my pocket, and then I'm working on centering not only to the center left and right of the pocket, but also making sure there's plenty of room for my daisies and my pocket, and it just fits, and I'm so happy. So now for these two last daisies, I know I didn't need to add them, but I definitely wanted them on there. So I'm going to glue one of them to the background in kind of an open spot that I see, and then the other one's going to actually go on my pocket. I thought it would be fun to kind of have a little bit of that daisy overlap, and I love that sweet little heart. So now my daisy pull out really nicely out of my pocket. I love my background and I'm feeling good about it. So I'm going to put this onto a white cardstock base. I'm just using some tape runner and I'm placing it onto my yellow cardstock and then placing that onto my card base. and clean up my workstation because some of that ink got on my mat. And now I'm going to move on to my sentiment. The Simple Sentiment Strips is one of my go-to stamp sets for sentiments, and I love that they have matching dies now. So I picked the best die for the Make Great Memory Sentiment. Die cut it out of some white paper and stamped in my VersaFine ink. I'm going to use my wet glue to adhere that down right into the top center of my pocket underneath that cute little daisy. I thought about popping it up, but since it is already kind of a thick card with that pocket, I just glued it right down. I have these black kind of iridescent pearls in my stash. If I can find something similar, I'll link it down below, along with everything else that I have used to make this fun interactive pocket card. I really hope you enjoyed this video and this tutorial. Again, you can find links to everything down below, as well as the next hopper on this hop. Please make sure you read everything down below about the giveaway we're also doing. And thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.